What's going on, everybody? Kalipis Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some camera tips and tricks for the OnePlus Nord N20 5G. Now before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out my other tips and tricks videos for it on the channel. But with that being said, let's get started. Now the first thing I want to show you is a quick and easy way to open your camera. Now using the camera app is easy enough, really can't go wrong with that, but if you're doing something else on your phone, maybe you're on an app for example, and you want to quickly capture something in the moment, then going back to your home screen and hitting the camera app might not be the most convenient thing. So instead what you can do is simply double press the power key like this, and your camera is going to open right up. So definitely a nice easy trick to make capturing something in the moment just that much faster. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use your macro camera to get some close-up detailed images. Now this phone luckily does have a 2 megapixel macro camera, and while it may not be the best macro camera out there, it does get the job done. Now this feature is really easy to access. What you're going to do is go down here to this bottom bar, go to more, and select macro mode. Now when you're taking photos in macro mode, be sure you're actually close enough to get a good image, because otherwise everything's going to be blurry. Like it says right here, ideally you're going to want to be about 4 centimeters away, and essentially this is what it's going to look like. Again, it may not be the best quality out there, but if you do want to get those close-up more detailed images, I would say this camera will get the job done. Now another tip here when it comes to the macro camera is to be sure to exit out of it, because if you try to take a regular photo in macro mode, of course it's probably not going to look very good. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to change the aspect ratio of your frame. So as you may or may not be able to tell right now, I am in 16:9. I personally like to take my test photos in this aspect ratio when I can, but by default the aspect ratio is going to be 4:3, and that's usually a really good all-around aspect ratio. You're really not going to go wrong with it. You can use it for Instagram, Twitter, just sending photos to family and friends, pretty much anything. But maybe you want a square photo, or maybe you want it to be really long or tall. Whatever the case may be, there are definitely several different options here. So to change your aspect ratio, you're going to go to these 2 dots right here. And as you can see, right up at the top it says aspect ratio, and you can choose between 4:3, 1:1, 16:9, which I am in right now, or full, and this is going to be the entire aspect ratio of the phone, which in the case of this phone is 20:9. So it's definitely nice we get all these aspect ratio options here, because for whatever reason there are lots of phones in this price range that only have 1:1 or 16:9 and not both. The next thing I'm going to show you is a few different things you can do with your volume keys. Now by default, when you press either of the volume keys, it's basically going to act as a physical shutter button. So if you're in photo mode, it's going to take a picture, and of course if you're in video mode, it's just going to start recording. But we actually have a couple of other options here. So to get to these, go to the 2 dots right here. From here, go to settings, and go to where it says volume button action. Again, by default it's basically just going to be a shutter, but you can also have it control the volume, or you can have it zoom. So let's go ahead and do zoom. Now if we go back to the camera, volume up is going to zoom in, and volume down is going to zoom out. So pretty cool. I personally like to leave it at the shutter, but of course it's really just going to be up to personal preference. The next thing I'm going to show you is a feature called full megapixel mode. So one interesting thing you might not know about this phone is that when you're taking a photo, you're not actually using the entire power of the camera. But luckily with this phone, there is a way to use the entire 64 megapixels of the camera, and this is going to get you some real high quality photos. So to do this, go to the dots up here and turn on 64 megapixels. As you can see, it automatically went to 4:3, and for whatever reason with this feature, this is the only aspect ratio that works. If you change aspect ratios, it's going to automatically turn the feature off. But anyway, with 64 megapixel on, you are using the full power of the camera, so your photos are going to be a little bit higher quality. But keep in mind, although these photos are better quality, the files themselves are going to be a bit larger. In my experience, it's not too bad, usually somewhere between 10 and 20 megabytes. But all the same, if you don't have a micro SD card, or if you just don't have a whole lot of space in general, this is something to keep in mind. Now I'm going to show you how to use the timer. This is a pretty useful feature if you're trying to do something more hands-free. Maybe you have your phone on a ring light, for example, and you want to get a video of yourself. In that kind of situation, the timer can be really useful. So to get to the timer, go to the dots, and the timer is right here. As you can see, you can choose between off, 3 seconds, and 10 seconds. So for this example, we're going to do 3. Go back to the main camera. And as you can see, when the timer is on, it has a little icon here with the time you selected. And this is really cool. Not every phone has it like this. But anyway, when the timer is on, hit the shutter like normal. It's going to count down. And there we have our photo. Now when you want to turn it back off, pretty simple. Just go back to the dots, go to timer, and turn it right back off. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how to turn on your watermark. I personally use it all the time because I have so many different phones, and when I'm taking test photos, it's pretty easy to get them mixed up. So it definitely helps me tell which phone is which. Now I feel like most of you are probably not going to be in that situation, but all the same, the watermark on this phone has a kind of cool retro look, and I know a lot of people actually like it. So first thing we're going to do is hit the dots. From here, go to settings. And watermark is right up here at the top. Go here. And from here, you can customize it so you can have your name. And by default, it's also going to have some information here. So right now, I got device model, date and time. You can also turn on the location if you want, or you can turn some things off. And then of course, if you don't want the watermark at all, you can always turn it off entirely. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to mute the shutter. Now you've probably noticed whenever I take a picture, it's going to make a pretty loud shutter sound. Now I personally don't mind it, but if you're taking a lot of photos, especially in public, it can get kind of annoying and maybe even a little weird. So to disable this sound, first things first, hit the dots. From here, go to settings. And as you can see, shutter sound is right here up at the top. I will say with this phone, most of the camera features and options that are more common are pretty easy to access, and they're all just kind of right here. But anyway, of course, shutter sound is right here, so simply toggle it off. And now if we go back to the camera, when you're taking pictures, the shutter will no longer make a sound. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to change your video resolution. So to do this, go to video mode, go to the top here, and as you can see, it's currently in 1080p, which unfortunately is the max quality. With how good this phone is, it would have been nice to be able to record 4K videos, but unfortunately it's not an option. Definitely one of the main weaknesses of this camera setup, along with not having an ultra-wide camera. But although we can't record 4K videos, if you're recording a video where you don't really care about the quality a whole lot, and maybe you'd rather save space instead, you can tap on the resolution and change it to 720p instead. So now when you're recording in 720p, although the resolution isn't as high, the files are going to be much smaller. So if you're recording a longer video and you don't really care a whole lot about the quality, then this might be a good option for you. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is how to customize your shortcut menu. Now if you're taking a lot of photos, or even if you're just using your camera at all for that matter, you're probably going to find there are certain modes you use a lot and some you don't really use a lot. So with the shortcut bar down here, you can get quick and easy access to pretty much any mode you want, and luckily this is really easy to customize. So what you're going to do is go to more, hit this icon right here, and now you can drag and drop pretty much any mode you want in and out of the bar, except for the regular photo and video modes, which I guess that's fair. But let's say you're using the macro camera all the time and you rarely ever take photos at night. Well, in that case, you might want to add the macro mode into this bar and remove night mode. To do this, simply press and hold on macro mode, drag it onto the bar, press and hold on night mode, drag it off, and there we go. And you can add multiple modes. So for example, dual video, same kind of thing, and there we go. And when you're done, be sure to hit done. And now as you can see, the new modes have been saved. So definitely pretty cool. But those were my camera tips and tricks for the OnePlus Nord N20 5G. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found these tips and tricks useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out my full review and other tips and tricks videos on the channel. But that's it for this video. Be sure to follow Kalipas Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next one.